Okay, hello. So, this is going to be video one of two that's going to go up today because I missed yesterday because I was in tremendous pain and, well, if pain is the word. I guess it would be appropriate, but I was in tremendous discomfort yesterday because we ordered out from this place. Well, I'll talk about that in the next video. In this video, I want to talk about uh, dogs and the update on what happened with them when we went over to the vet on Monday the 13th. So this one will basically be the video for the 13th and an update on the pups. So dropped them off at right before 8 o'clock, 7:45, and throughout the day I was getting calls, especially about Simba. So Simba is, of the two of my dogs, has had the most health problems, even though he hasn't had that many health problems. He's got uh, ear infections he's had over the years. He's had an anxiety issue where he'll gnaw on his paw. He'll chew on his paw. And so he gets this little boo-boo on his arm that doesn't ever go away because he chews on when he gets anxious, he chews on his paw. They also think that the reason he could chew on his paw is because of pain, and that's a soothing technique. By doing the licking on his paw or kind of nibbling on it, he's kind of distracting from the pain that he's getting from what they think might be arthritis or something like that. This is what they said yesterday, even though he's been doing that most of his life, the chewing on his paw part, or licking on his paw part. So they didn't notice any heart murmur. Before they had noticed a light heart murmur, but they didn't notice anything like that, which allowed them to put him under anesthesia because they were going to clean his teeth. And he did have his teeth cleaned. They said that there was a number of dental issues there. He had a couple of pockets in his teeth that had to be addressed. So that's a long-term dental problem. They did fill in this one pocket with gel on the back that apparently was really having problems. So there's two other spots that they think they're worried about him being the teeth becoming impacted because of these little separations, these little pockets. So I'm definitely gonna have to address those so he doesn't have that, because they said over time it could cause problems with his jaw and his ability to chew. Mind you, Simba's 9 years old, so Simba has a couple of issues going on. In addition to that, so we have the ear, we have the arthritis thing developing, we have the dental issues developing. So my baby's going through some stuff. Unfortunately, he's such a beautiful boy, and he's so loyal. So Simba lately has been staying really close to me, and dogs can know things even about themselves, I think, in ways that we as humans don't realize sometimes. So it's possible that that Simba knows something about his health that I don't know, something beyond what we're seeing here, and that scares me because I'm scared of the idea of losing Simba. He's not a young dog anymore, but he's not a very old dog either. He's kind of in a middle-aged range. I mean, maybe he's in the early area of geriatric, but he's not, as old as some dogs live to be, which is 13, 14. So I'm scared of the idea of his time would be being finite. But I have to accept that that's a possibility. But I love him so much, and I'm so grateful to Simba. He and Amadeus have both just changed my life and made my life so much better, and have made me better as a person and as a parent than I ever would have been without them. I think that until you have children, you don't realize things about yourself, and especially with dogs, I think there's a certain amount of responsibility you aren't willing to take, and there's a responsibility you have to take with dogs, just like you do with human babies. And I don't think until you're in the situation, I don't think you realize it. And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people realize it when they're in it. That's why we have so many broken homes, and we have such poor raising of children, and we have such uncontrollable children. But my boys have been, I mean, I would say, they've been fantastic 98.9% of the time. And that's an amazing benefit to me. So then Amadeus, they reported that Amadeus, his biggest issue is arthritis. Oh, I should finish with Simba. So with Simba, they said his ideal weight should be 60 pounds, and he's at 66 pounds, okay? And then Amadeus, going into Amadeus, he was at 105, and they said his ideal is 70 pounds. So they're saying he's significantly overweight, which is bad on his heart. I mean, we're talking about him carrying around, 33, almost 50% more of his mass than he should be carrying around. Which is, I'm no one to talk because I'm carrying around even more than that of my mass. But this is what I'm talking about with responsibility. You learn you have to have responsibility towards your children and to help them and make sure they don't repeat the same patterns that you repeat, especially with puppies, because their lives are even more finite than ours are. But arthritis is the biggest issue they have to worry about with him. Even though Amadeus loves to play, he loves to play ball and everything like that, he's still developing arthritis. So let me talk a little bit about this arthritis thing before I get into anything else. So it used to be a couple of years ago that I would walk the dogs in this square pattern that was probably 2 miles. We would walk this long path around from where I lived in Houston. We'd walk from Jackson Hill over to Alabama. Wait, is that right? Yeah, we do this one too. Jackson Hill over to Alabama, up Alabama to, I want to say it was called Chimney Rock, and then over Chimney Rock over to Richmond Avenue, and then down Richmond and back to our apartment. So it was probably a good mile and a half or 2 miles walk. And we would do that fairly consistently. Maybe not, every day, but every other day, maybe, twice, 3 times a week. And we used to, before that, when we were living in another community, we'd go out into a field and play, and do that when they were a little younger. So over this new community we've been living in here, I've been really hesitant to take them over to this dog park over here because they have water sitting out, and they have, dogs that poop everywhere and they don't pick up after them. And I'm afraid of them getting a hold of feces, because dogs sniff and, lick that stuff when they're trying to get an idea of, familiarity with the situation. And I don't want to take a chance on them getting something from another dog. I also, when you put water and stuff around there, you get mosquitoes, you get flies, and flies are attracted to dogs. They go after their fur. They become, you get ticks and all kinds of stuff like that on dogs. I just don't want my dogs to get. So I've been as much as I want them to play, I don't want them to be in that atmosphere because I have no control over the other dogs. And so I've been really weird about that. But I also haven't walked them. So this is a failing on my part. I haven't walked them like they used to be walked. And I think that arthritis is, as much as it is for them, it's for me too. But arthritis comes when you don't stay active and you don't keep your body in motion and active in the whole thing. I think your body starts to wear down and the muscle starts to deteriorate. And as a result of it, you're no longer the same person you once were. You can't do all the same things you used to do because you don't have that. You haven't built up that cardio. Your muscles don't have that same stamina, and they start to break down. And, inevitably conditions like arthritis and the like set in. Their joint issues start to settle in because just because of a lack of activity. And that's a fault of mine. So I want to get them back into more activity. I can't push them to do these 1.5, 2 mile walks like that in one, like they used to, at least not for a while. But I definitely got to get them back into more exercise. And this yard, I think, will help for us to play a little bit more, but then also just to, walk around this block with sidewalks and stuff like that, just so I could keep them active and, and keep them doing well. So that's a fault of mine. And I hope to improve that. Well, I'm going to improve that when we get to the new location, new apartment. But in general, I've needed to do that for a couple of years. My lack of activity and taking care of them is part of the reason they're in the situation they're in right now. And I have to do something to stop that, because they simply cannot continue to be healthy like that. So I got to get them more active. But anyway, so they've prescribed them a number of drugs. Hang on one second, turn this fan on here. It's a little warm for me. I get warm fast. Ugh. Okay, so that being said, they prescribed them a number of drugs for anti-inflammatory, for some supplements for arthritis, for bone density and things like that. For Simba, they've given him something for his dental issues, a kind of an antibiotic for his dental issues, to make sure that that bacteria is killed in his teeth that are causing problems. They've given him some eardrops to clean out his little ears. So they're on a little routine now, which they need to stick with. We need to stick with and keep them going. And so that's really important. And then they've prescribed for Deus something for his arthritis, that they've given him a medication, and then ultimately a supplement. But here's where I'm concerned. It is not a mystery to anyone who knows me, really knows me, that I do not trust the pharmaceutical companies. Okay, I simply don't. I don't trust them for humans. I don't trust them for dogs. I hardly trust them for any animal, any creature alive. And the reason is that there is no cure. We don't have a desire. When we lived hundreds of years ago, okay, back in, 18th century, 19th century, even to the early 20th century, there weren't as many doctors, okay? There weren't as many doctors, and so doctors aimed at trying to find solutions to people's health issues. They weren't always going to find the solution, but they were trying to find solutions. Whereas nowadays, in the latter part of the 20th century, and definitely into the 21st century, with medicine and all that, I feel like they have moved towards not finding cures, but finding numbing agents to things. But they're not really interested in the cures because there's no money in cures. And it's just like any other kind of drug. It's just a legalized narcotic to get people hooked on drugs to where they need them. Because if you don't use them, then you start to see other symptoms show. And let me make that a little more clear. You get hooked on a medicine that's supposed to prevent you from having a condition, whether it's to control arthritis or whatever the case may be. And when you don't take it, if you've started taking it and you take it for a consistent amount of time, you hardly ever get off of it. You hardly ever get off of that medication. Once you're on it for the rest of your life. It's just like diabetics. If they get on medication, they're usually on it for the rest of their lives. And things like metformin and things like Glabrite, all these medicines they put people on for diabetes, those things destroy their liver and their kidneys over time, because they create sediment like in their body that doesn't ever completely wash away. And so it starts to impact the sorry, I'm still a little tired, but it starts to impact the function of those parts of your body. And so I don't trust medicine, Western medicine, that much, because I do believe there's far more profit than there is patient care in it. And I think that, part of the problem is that, Kingsley, I think part of the problem is that, people who are doctors or nurses now, they say, okay, well, let's see, this client has this, and this symptom. And then they go look in a book and say, okay, so what's the solution for this and this symptom? Okay, so this and this symptom says you have this, and let's medicate you with this, because that's what the book says. But it's not necessarily because it is, and you don't necessarily have to go to the book sometimes, especially if you've been prescribing it for a long time. You may just know it by heart, or it may just be a go-to for any patient, right? Give them some kind of antibiotic, and, you have a cold, oh, here's this antibiotic, take this antibiotic. And the problem is that the pharmaceutical companies have too much of a hand in medicine now. And they are trying to satisfy their shareholders. I understand that, but it's at the risk of people's long-term health. And they're not worried if someone gets sicker and dies, because the truth is that there's 8 billion people on the planet, and it would take a very, very long time to wipe out that number of people in one big shot, to where they didn't have any customers. So they could give medicines that, they could give medicines that will long-term not be good for you, but that over, the short term of 10 or 15 years may, continue to, have you be paying with copay or insurance for these items, and they're still getting their kickbacks financially. And if you die eventually from it, there's still, 7.9999999999999 billion people on the planet who are still on their medicines or whatever else, effectively. So if there wasn't as much money in medicine, and doctors get kickbacks. Don't ever believe a doctor doesn't get a kickback for participating in medicine and advocating for it or whatever else. I mean, it's a part of the structure of their business now. But bottom line is that side effects are very dangerous from a lot of these drugs nowadays, what they can do to your body. And as much as I'm talking about humans when I'm saying this, I feel the same way about dogs and other animals that are being treated. The market for animals is not as big as it is for dogs, but it's still big. And I feel like that's the problem, is there's money in it for them. And as long as there's money in it for them, then they're going to be willing to give these dogs, these animals, whoever they are, medication to keep them, feeding money back into them. And it doesn't have to be, super high. I mean, even though the medicine is high, the dog's medication, I paid, almost $400 in medication, $400 or $500 in medication yesterday for the dogs. And it's not cheap, and I'm not worried about that if it really helped them. But my concern is that they're trying to get them on a medication track, and that medication they'll have to be on it for the rest of their lives. And it's really got more to do with how can we get 4 years out of the lives of these dogs on this medication, even though it may not be good for their bodies, just so we have, them on medication. And I'm not talking about the vets having any ill will or ill intent. I think that they honestly believe they're helping the animals. But I think the problem is that the pharmaceuticals are selling them something. They're trained like this, and when they go to medical school, whatever type of medical school they go to. And then I also think that the pharmaceutical companies pump them full of this idea that, well, look, this is what we're going to do to help these pets, and we're trying to help them. But really, in the end, there is no money in cures, because if there was money in cures, we would already have cures for things like cancer. It would be able to be cured. There's too many people out there who've been studying it to where they could have cured cancer at this point. And even studies, I think, where people have shown that they could cure a number of cancers, but people just but pharmaceutical companies don't want cures for things like that, because there's just no money in it. And I know everybody thinks, well, no, if I'm only paying a $35 copay, then I'm getting a really good deal. Well, there is so many ways in which pharmaceutical companies make money. Part of it is their relationship with the government and get subsidies and things like that. It's not just the patients. The studies that they will do on medicine, they get paid by the government to do those studies. And if you think all those millions and millions of dollars are going to that study and not to salaries, especially to pay people or to make their bottom line look bigger, then you're fooling yourself. So it concerns me about what this medicine is for them. I'm going to put them on the medicine and see how it does for them, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't concerned about the potential problems that could come from putting them on medicine long term. So that's it for this. I hope you're doing well. God bless you. If you could tell, I'm a little bit out of my head still because, and I'll talk about that in the next video, but take care of yourself. God bless. I hope you had a beautiful 4th of July with the person you love, all the people that you love, and take care, and I will see you soon.